what are some of the qualities of let's just call it a bad brand? And I know there are so many, but what are some of the most common? You mentioned naming conventions. Like what's an example of a bad idea for a name? Not calling anybody out, right? But the types of names that
Yeah.
we see that
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
remarkable.
First off, initial based brands, meaning, ZD plumbing and heating would be a really terrible idea. Any initials are, generally speaking, very, very difficult for people to remember. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to use my initials, like DA Heating and Air. The problem is there's no specific visual that I can assign to have people latch on to the idea of DA, let's just say as an example. And secondly, there's no inferred promise with it. The promise comes to repetition of the advertising campaigns and having people eventually associate something to do with those initials, if ever. But the reality is it takes so much money for that to ever happen that you're so much better off just having a name that already exhibits a promise. And if you want to look at Zoom Drain as a name that exhibits promise, well, what is it doing for me? What is it telling me? Well, I've got a problem in my house and these guys are going to fix it fast. They're going to make my pain go away fast. But if it was ZD drain, well, where's my inferred promise? I don't have one. And I would need a ton of marketing for me to associate ZD plumbing with a specific promise. So the idea is lead in with something that already gives us the promise in a more succinct fashion. Last name brands have the same challenge, generally speaking. So when you think about a last name brand, again, repetition over time, maybe you can start to infer a specific promise. But generally speaking, it requires a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of marketing that goes into having someone associate a promise. So if it was Antonelli Plumbing, well, and I didn't know who you were and I just saw the truck, well, what do I think I'm going to get based on that last name? And now granted, KickCharge has done probably 3,000 home service brands at this point, probably a little bit more. And I would say we've done at least 1,000 last name based brands. So I'm not here to tell you it can't work, but I will say that if you have the opportunity to start a company, or you are a company that is maybe only a year or two into it and only a million or less in revenue, that's actually still a great time to really think about names and whether or not it's something you want to continue. A lot of the renames that we do, like last year, we probably renamed about 75 home service companies, and the bulk of them were last name based brands or initial based brands. And again, just they were not gaining any traction. People didn't know who they were. And the other part of it too is there's no specific visual that you can assign to it. So if it was ZD plumbing, let's just say, well, yes, I can make a symbol related to water or pipes or plumbing. I can do that, right? But that only tells me the what. It doesn't tell me the who, right? So the visual doesn't connect with the name of the company. It just only connects with the service. Ideally, if I have the visual and it connect to the service, um, it's much easier for the mind to process that and remember it and store it. So, there's an old saying that talks about repetition and how long it takes for a brand to become memorable or for someone to know a name. And the sort of the general rule of thumb, if it takes 16 to 20 impressions before a brand is remembered. And I always look at that and I say, well, what if you could cut that down to five? Like, what would that mean for your business? Five impressions, and have it be a sticky brand. Like, so that's sort of the notion behind that. But yeah, that's definitely some of the mistakes make early on is definitely naming.